What a beautiful day. What a beautiful afternoon. Good afternoon, fellow Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines members, our partner for this webinar, the Psychological Association of the Philippines, guest speakers, and the JFINEX community. I am Dada Del Carmen, the overall chair of the Junior FINEX Committee. And this webinar is presented to you by FINEX through its Junior FINEX Committee in partnership with the Psychological Association of the Philippines. The theme of this webinar is adapting to life's new norm. Before we start, I would like to invite our FINEX board member, Mr. Antonio Ramon Tony Boy Ongsiaco, to lead a prayer to be followed by the Philippine National Anthem.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let us place ourselves in the presence of the Lord. We will start now with a prayer. Father God, all glory and honor and blessing, all powerful, all power and might, all thanks and thanksgiving be to you, Abba Father, to us all. We stand on your word declaring that when we call upon you, you will answer us and be with us in distress. Our deliverer and healer, we seek your protection for our families and all of us from the scourge of the COVID-19 and all manner of disease and affliction. We pray especially for our health workers who tirelessly perform their duties at great risk to themselves. We pray for all of us co-workers in the business community that we may perform our tasks with greater diligence in these difficult times, to serve each other in our country in solidarity and spirit of social responsibility. We pray for all those in authority in government and the private sector, that they may have all wisdom, competence, and strength to lead us and serve through this period of crisis, with special attention to our poor and disadvantaged brethren who are struggling to survive. We pray for reconciliation and peace among all Filipinos as we come to better realize our oneness as people in good times and bad, as a common dread unites us. So in acknowledgement of our dependence on you and in obedience, we approach you, Father God, humble ourselves and pray, seek your presence and turn from our evil ways, that you may listen from heaven and forgive our sins and revive our land. In loving name of your Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Let us now sing the national anthem.
Of the following webinar rules. Participants will be muted all throughout the presentations. This webinar is also being broadcasted live on JFINEX FB page. The participants may type in their questions in the Q&A button, which you can see at the bottom of your screen, during or after the presentations. Please indicate your affiliation. It may either be a school or a company name. For example, Juan de la Cruz ABC Company, Margaret Garcia XYZ University, when posting your questions. Please be guided that the questions which will be entertained during the panel discussion, which will be after the presentations of our two speakers. We will try to answer all of the queries, but in case we cannot accommodate all the questions, the Secretariat will sort and collate all the unanswered questions. We will have them answered by our speakers. Then we will post the answers on the FB page of JFINEX. Now, with so much excitement, let us start. May I call on our FINEX President and CFO of Pilipinas Shell, Mr. Jeng Pascual III, for our opening remarks. President Jeng?
Thank you very much, Dada. Good afternoon, FINEX members, business and finance students and guests. Welcome to this afternoon's webinar on Adapting to Life's New Norms, sponsored by the Junior FINEX Committee and the Psychological Association of the Philippines. We are living in unprecedented times. But if we set aside the current COVID crisis for a moment, I can also tell you that we are living in a new era, the influential era. So how did we get here? You would have learned in school that the modern age started in the 18th century when man laid down his hand tools and switched to the use of machines. That became the industrial era. Moving forward 100 years or so, we saw the advent of modern day computers and the birth of the internet. We entered the information era. Today, because of technological advancements and innovations, around 50% of the world's population own computers, 62% own mobile phones, and 45% own smartphones. And with this, access to social media, video streaming, blogs, vlogs, news, even fake news, where people's behaviors are very much influenced by what they hear, see, or read. We are now in the influential era. This is why we now have the term influencers, persons with the power to affect the buying decisions, opinions, actions, and choices, including votes, of other people because of their actual or perceived authority or knowledge on a certain topic, or their position and relationship with their audience. Why am I talking about this? The deluge of information, news, fake news, TikTok challenges, and even having to deal with opposing influencers and even troll armies can be very stressful. And add to that, the current COVID crisis and the social and economic difficulties that come with it. Stress can graduate into burnout, paranoia, and other mental health issues. We are therefore fortunate to have with us distinguished speakers, experienced in the field of mental health. I would like to welcome Dr. Cely Magpantay from St. Luke's Medical Center and Ms. Maureen Jean Lara from AXA Philippines. They will be properly introduced later by our liaison director for Junior FINEX, Mr. Benny Soliven, who will also be moderating our event this afternoon. And our speakers will also be joined by our distinguished panelists, members of the JFINEX committee, our chair, JFINEX chair, Ms. Dada Del Carmen, and Mr. Jeremy Abanyo. I would also like to take this opportunity to once again thank the JFINEX committee, led by Dada, together with Benny, with Tony Boy, Jeremy, and the FINEX Secretariat for pulling this event together for all you finance and business students attending. But before I hand back, let me leave you with one thought on mental health and resilience. Viktor Frankl, an Austrian psychiatrist and World War II Holocaust survivor, wrote the book Man's Search for Meaning. That was in 1946. He was a prisoner of one of the Nazi concentration camps, and he took the opportunity while he was there to study how people survived the hardships, the hunger, and anguish of being prisoners. The common factor he saw was that all who survived had something significant yet to do in their future. Let me repeat that. All who survived had something significant yet to do in their future. Whether it was a child they longed to see after the war, or a book that they had to finish. What drove their resilience and survival was that significant positive vision they had for themselves. All of you students are about to start your life journeys, and for the moment, you or we are prisoners of the current crisis. But you, in your case, you have a whole future in front of you. And it is very important that you develop that positive vision of the future for yourselves and for the country now. I wish all of you a pleasant and insightful JFINEX webinar. Please continue to take care of yourselves and each other. And remember, it is okay to say you are not okay. Thank you.
Thank you, President Jeng. Now may I call on Liaison Director of JFINEX, Mr. Benny Sullivan, to serve as our moderator for this webinar. LD Benny?
Thank you, Dada. Thank you, President Cheng. And I hope after today's session, we will all be able to see some glimmer of hope of our life's vision. Good afternoon, JFINEX and the FINEX community. I am excited about today's conversations. These are challenging times for everyone. Health experts are telling us to be physically fit and healthy. What vitamin supplements to take, that we should get enough sleep, that we should be able to exercise also on a regular basis. There are numerous business and finance webinars and articles focusing on how to stay financially healthy. And of course, our religious, they are imploring everyone to continue to pray and to ask for guidance on how to best deal with this pandemic spiritually and keep us spiritually healthy outlook. Coming from a holistic approach, today's webinar will discuss how to maintain our mental and emotional wellness. We have two amazing speakers who are psychologists by training and mental wellness advocates who will share their stories and valuable insights on how we can adapt to life's new normal. Our first speaker, Dr. Cely Magpantay, is a clinical psychologist, consultant at St. Luke's Medical Center, Memory Center, and a psychologist and psychometrician at the University of the East, Ramon Magsaysay Memorial Medical Center. She serves as a consultant for industrial organizations and corporate training and review centers for psychometricians and psychologists. Dr. Cely was the treasurer of the Psychological Association of the Philippines from 2018 to 2019. So maybe she can also become a member of FINEX then. She has experience in terms of finances. She has facilitated various seminars in career, character, and personality development. She has also contributed to various research publications on mental wellness issues and overall wellness. Our second speaker is Ms. Maureen Jean Lara, who is currently a leader and training and development officer of AXA Philippines. She has a BS Psychology degree from the University of the Philippines, Diliman, and has a master's degree from San Pedro College and Ateneo de Davao University in industrial counseling and clinical psychology, respectively. She is currently taking her PhD at the Ateneo de Davao, where she also teaches in the Graduate School of Psychology. She has firsthand experience dealing with mentally challenged patients during her stint with the Southern Philippines Medical Center Institute of Psychiatry and Behavioral Medicine. Maureen, or Mau, as she's usually called, has been active in speaking engagements and served as a resource person to various television shows on the topics of mental wellness. She has also done research papers, presentations, and acted as a resource person for speaking engagements regarding topics on resilience among college and Filipino adolescents, mindfulness, and anxiety management. So, students, ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome our first speaker, Dr. Cely Magpantay.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Let me present my screen for a moment. I know you're also excited to learn something from our presentation this afternoon. So before we start, I hope you have another gadget with you or you can open a browser, because for today, I will be using a more interactive discussion using the Mentimeter. So if you have your additional gadget with you, please bring it also and search the mentimeter.com and look for join a presentation. When you are in your gadget, like a smartphone, you can type in this number 145908, or you can also use the Q code to access my presentation. So again, for those who have an extra gadget, please open your Mentimeter, join the presentation. The code is 145908. So I want to know if everyone is ready. Okay, if you are in your Mentimeter, you can click your answer. Thank you for those responding. Okay. I'm waiting for the other response, so I will check that you are all ready for our presentation this afternoon. All right. Thank you for all your participation. I am only given 15 minutes. I will move ahead. So I know that all are ready. I see a lot of responses. So I also want to know my audience this afternoon. Are you a student, fresh graduate, businessman or woman, a parent, an audience? You can have as many roles that you want to choose. Okay, so at least we have expectations here. Now I can also know my audience. Wow, majority are students. Next in line are audience, fresh graduate, and also businesswomen and parents. So thank you for that quick response. What are the challenges you are experiencing during this COVID-19 pandemic? I know it's very personal, but at least we have the same background, we have the same experience to begin with. I want to know how you feel or how are the challenges. Okay, so others said they are anxious, they're stressed, online classes, insomnia, internet difficulties. That's very correct. Okay. Hard to find a job, there's isolation, homesick, boredom, pressure, financial crisis, sudden sadness. I think all of this, no, are usually our dilemma. And of course, the bottom line is, of course, mental illness. Thank you for that 122 response. Now, as we know, in the context right now, okay, as mentioned in your short exercises. Majority experience stress or other psychological condition. Because of the COVID, we are also limited with our social spaces, especially for students. The challenge is going to online, pure online classes. The people who are looking for jobs, no, the financial impact, or not even you, even your parents also. And some other passions were lost, like hobbies, going to movie, dining with friends, like some gupsal. It's really a challenge. And it changes us, and we don't know when this pandemic will end. So, what other psychological issues that you have experienced at this time during pandemic? It might be present, or you have overcome it, or you're still in the struggle of it. I want to know your answer. Stress, overthinking, depression and anxiety, being left behind, fear, worried, insomnia, loneliness, boredom, pressure, difficulty sleeping. Thank you for those answers. I think majority are anxious, no, because of the anticipation and a lot of unanswered questions that are keep triggering in our experience. So, let me just give you a more factual data or statistics in the Philippines regarding mental health. According to the World Health Organization, before the onset of COVID-19, the Philippines has the highest number of depression cases in Southeast Asia alone. Okay, thank you for those reactions. I see thumbs up, heart, there. It's really true, no? Before the pandemic, we have a lot of cases. You can also hear in the news that the depression is rising up. And I know there's so much more challenge right now because of the confinement in the four corners of the room. And to note also that the mental disorder is not just in the Philippines. Now we see it globally. 14% of mental illness right now is caused by depression, alcohol, drugs, and even psychosis. I think to name a few, even abuses is also increasing, domestic violence in the home because they are confined in their house, where most of the time they are exposed to those abusers or challengers. So in reality, mental illness is really a disability, not just a physical disability, it's a mental disability, because when a person experiences mental health issue, their functioning is affected. That's why I see some responses earlier, they cannot sleep, they cannot concentrate, no, there's difficulty in daily activities, and this particular pandemic is really getting bigger. No, it has more social and psychological consequences because of the increasing demand of the COVID. So let me guide you through some of the early signs of stress. Okay? First can be work and change habit, or it can be change in study habit. If you are studying, wow, I see a lot of thumbs up and hearts there. Okay, one of the sign is that a person experiencing stress which is overwhelming, there is a presence of lack of motivation. Like it's so hard to wake up knowing that you will do the same thing over and over again. And there's also difficulty in concentration. You can hardly memorize, no? There's difficulty in problem solving, even comprehending learnings or reading. These are one of the signs of stress. Now, a second side of stress is also related to the physical changes. Like in general, personal grooming, no? Although right now you're not pressured to dress up because you don't go out of the house, but the personal grooming is related to the overall functioning. When a person is experiencing severe mental illness, they don't want to bath. It's so hard to brush their teeth, no? Because these are already neglected. So if you have that, you can check it. Now you have a possibility of stress beyond your control. The third sign is, of course, the lack of motivation. There's a commercial that I like in the coffee commercial. They say, kanino ka bumabangon, no? So, making your purpose every day or trying to find meaning in the everyday activity is very important. And if you are overstressed, lack of stress is there, you feel like you are always tired, lack of energy, even if you are on the bed all the time, it can happen. Feeling sickly, feeling like feverish, no? These are part of the physical signs of stress. And it can also affect your emotions. And therefore, your action will also speak to the difficulty you are experiencing. The next changes of early stress is the changes in your demeanor, like mood swing. No, you become more irritable. There's somehow excessive nervousness, unusual behavior that you don't usually do. You spend 24/7 in gaming. You spend 24/7 in watching Netflix or Korean novela. There's really a drastic change of personality. Wow, I see a lot of thumbs up. No? You are agreeing with me. Thank you for those comments. So, it's not because you cannot control your emotion here. It's because of the conditions that you are experiencing that leads to the changes of the moods or behavioral personality change. So the next early sign is, of course, withdrawing or avoiding interaction. Before, you love to chat, you love to text or call your friends or somebody just to get connected. But right now, you turn off your social media, unfriend those people you used to join to conversation or over coffee. So you are unwilling to communicate and you are withdrawn and you have to avoid visual situations or platforms, social connections. So there's really a social distancing. So with all these signs of stress, you can confirm that you are not mentally healthy because of what is going on. So again, it can be in a form of change of behavior, it can be physical symptoms, cognitive like concentration, lack of motivations, and of course, the changes that is happening to you socially. So let's have some more tips on how we can handle those early signs. The first the first one way to cope with the stress or the beginning of mental illness, if you have to take care of your physical health. Now, the physical health is connected to our psychological health. The more that we are healthy, we can be resistant to stresses. But the more that we are physically unhealthy, it will lead to further stress. So, the first short coping mechanism that I advise you to do on a physical daily routines is to structure your day. No, because when you have a structured time every day, just like what you see on the PowerPoint, it gives you a sense of purpose and meaning, even though you don't feel it, but because you are very structured in your routines, it gives you that sense of motivation to do it. Okay, so the more that you get your structure done, the better it is physically and mentally. And then if you are working, for those who are still working, you can look at the workflow, or if you are studying, follow your routines. Wake up the same time that you are doing before the COVID. If you wake up 6 o'clock in the morning, you have your breakfast done, you prepare yourself, and 9 o'clock you have a class, then do it. No? You can also create a structure of online routines so that it will blend to your overall body activities. Then, in your structure, you can put up some self-care tool like adjust your time to sleep early and also doing something that you love to do. The more that we are progressive every day, the more that we are able to battle the psychological toil of the COVID pandemic. Because when we keep ourselves busy, we are distracted to a lot of things around us, and we keep focus on the day-to-day. So that's the first thing that you need to do, structure your day. It wasn't easy at first. You are adjusting. Now, you have to gradually adjust your time. The second one, in terms of the physical, is also take care of your body, no? Your nutrition, exercises, and then I want to highlight the sunlight here. Do you know that the vitamin D that we get from the sunlight, it gives us a better mood, stability. In most country, like there's a long winter season and they have lesser exposure to the sun, they have higher depression. So you have to take advantage of our season. We are blessed with sun every day. And this is a free vitamins for our skin and mental health. So you can also work on some small routines like exercise 15 to 20 minutes. You can do it at home. There's a lot of free apps that you can download to help you to get fit. Now, when we are exercising, it builds up our endorphins and also it maintains the chemical balance in our body. Of course, not to mention about nutrition, this is what we need, no? We need to increase our immune system to battle with COVID, and at the same time, once your physical body is healthy, it follows. Next, of course, is sufficient rest. You know, the challenge of all millennials at this point in time is because of the technology, we sleep less. So sufficient rest is very important. Get a minimum to 6 to 8 hours of continuous rest. And by the way, when I say rest, that means you sleep at least earlier than midnight. Because when you sleep like past 12 o'clock in the midnight or 1 a.m. in the morning, it's not going to give you a full rest, even if you over exceed the hours the next day. Do you know that if a person cannot sleep for 1 week, they lose their sanity? So that's how important our sleep, because when we are sleeping, our body is in total rest. It produces chemical balance and restore our functioning. So you will notice if you don't sleep properly, your moods are really going crazy. No, you are very irritable, you lack concentration, there's more disadvantage when we don't sleep. So take a take a short break throughout the day where you can do some naps if not possible, but make sure you start to do discipline in your sleep. If you have to lessen your screen time in Facebook or other social platform, give yourself enough rest. It also produces longevity or long life. Now, according to some researches, the more that you sleep, the real one, the healthy one, you have longer lifespan. So that's for the physical. No, you have to maintain the sleep, you have to maintain your exercise, the food, and daily routines. Next is the mental or cognitive. So we know that when we are stressed, we become more dysfunctional in terms of our thoughts. So if we have a very stress-free environment or lifestyle, we can also produce very healthy thoughts. So first is on the mental aspect, you need to learn how to restructure your negative thoughts. We always overthink. One of the big words there in our interaction earlier is overthinking. You can help yourself to rewire your mind not to overthink. But if you overthink, please think of positive things. So when you look at this photo, you would notice now the person is really very exhausted and tired because they have negative thoughts all around. I can do it. I'm not worthy. I must be perfect. Nobody loves me. The if only, why, and only if, it's not going to help you. You have to be positive. And we owe ourselves to be positive. No, it's a regular practice. When you look around the environment, everything becomes negative. The news, the government, the situations of the COVID, the mental health issue rising up, everything is dull and blue. But we have to keep our mind on check because that's the only way for us to be resilient and to overcome this pandemic. No? Keep your mind in check. Change the negative words into I can, I will, I can do it. Why not? No? You have to question that possibility. Of course, part of your mental exercise is focus on your strength. I want to highlight that part. We have to focus on our strength because the strength are the qualities that comes naturally and you are reflecting things that you are good at. So if you take a time every day to look at the mirror or just reflect your inner strength, it helps you also to cope with the problems around you. Focus on your strength. I see a lot of good testimonies in the TV, like for example, flight attendant, they lose their job, they start online selling, they become an entrepreneur, they grow their potential, and that's also part of getting strength. Find some qualities that you can grow over it, learn over it, and maximize it. And I think this is the time that we need to be creative. So in focusing your strength, it's also important to avoid irrational self-talk. Uh, we have to guard our self by talking properly or saying good things about ourselves. So irrational self-talk is characterized by overgeneralizing the event and then appropriately labeling our behaviors. That, for example, you say, I'm really a bad person, I always commit mistake. So you have to really check your self-dialogue. Remember, it always starts with your cognitive reflection. You have to reflect, think positively, and then you have to tell it, you are like prophesying positivity about yourself. It's easy to accept how people judge us by the way they see us. But when we allow those words to affect us and becomes our personal language, you are destroying your very core or yourself. So self-talk is very important. Encourage yourself. No one will do that. And you can do it better than anyone. So that's on the mental exercise. So the third part is the emotion. No? Increase your positive emotion. This is a progressive action. No? We have to learn how to increase our emotion by practice gratitude. It's not easy to say thank you for the COVID. Thank you, I'm housebound. Um, Thank you for all the stresses. No, it's not easy to say thank you, but according to this caption, practicing gratitude and being grateful are keys to a happy life. You know, I always ask my client in the clinic whenever they feel depressed, anxious, I keep track of a journal. So if you want to start practicing gratitude, my suggestion for you is keep a journal. And then every day, put something small that you wanted to be thankful about. at least 3 to 5 things that you are grateful for every day. And don't, when you write it down the next day, it has to be new things all the time. It's a challenge. When we learn our mind to focus on something that is positive and we're grateful for, we also increase our positive emotion. Okay? It makes us more aware of things around us. The COVID, although it causes a lot of stress in all of us, it disrupts our routines and our lifestyle. Somehow it brings out something that is essential. Like you have more time with your family, you become more close to them or aware of their presence maybe. You also become less materialistic because you focus on something that is important or necessity. So these are, and we become appreciative of our health, that we're healthy. So these are some example of gratitude. And thank you for those giving their hearts on the icons. Huh? We have to learn how to practice self-gratitude. It's helpful also that it make us more aware of the emotions that we are in every day. So when a person continue to practice gratitude, these are one of those benefits. They increase their positive emotion. It broadens their horizon. They were able to solve problem better. It also increases your well-being because you're more grateful of everything that is around you. You feel hopeful and optimism. So you are changing your mindset, your attitude over things, and it gives you a bigger picture about life when we are grateful for small and big things around us. Okay? So aside from the mental and emotional, the next would be something related to social. Okay? Because I know every one of us is really challenged with the social environment around us. So on a social aspect, we learn how to connect to other people. We need to, we cannot replace face-to-face conversation, but we have to be connected to others. Don't isolate yourself. Find ways to connect. And because we are a human being and we are a social being, no, it also give us a wellness when we are connecting to the people around us. But connect to the right others, no, to the right people. So if that person is very toxic, who talks about problem every day, avoid it. If you're not mentally and psychologically ready to hear their problems, avoid it. But if these people that you talk to brings more hope and positivity to you, talk to them more. Encourage one another. It helps you build a common ground. And also, you can talk to any family or friends, or you can engage in a support group. I think your organization like this one is a support group. And if you feel like it's more than the stress, it's getting more heavier every day, your feeling is becoming more intense and you need a professional to handle it, seek professional psychologist as well. No, it's not bad to be more sensitive to our mental health. I think this is the real time to seek for professional right now in order us to get ourselves back into balance. So, I'm almost close to my presentation. I want to end with some few more questions in your Mentimeter. What strengths you have at this point in time, whether you already have it now or you're still trying to build up for yourself to cope better in the pandemic. Okay, support, positive mindset, your family, your sociability, your creativity, being busy, God, acceptance, your friends, trying to be happy, prayer, initiative, strong faith, acceptance. I think I see more on the family and friends and positive mindset. These are most of the common answer. And positivity and success. No? So thank you for all those answers. You know, I believe in the Filipinos, we are very resilient people. No? We might be lacking with other things like financial stability or challenges around us politically, economically, socially, but we have a very strong resilience. We will always find way to overcome. And thank you for that answer. Now, with the strength that you have right now, remember, you can always focus on your strength. You will always find a way to cope with it. So moving forward, there's so many challenges that we are facing. Job opportunities, one, the challenge of work arrangement, online testing. I want to end up with this caption with your challenges. No? Believe in yourself. It always starts with the belief in yourself. Because if you believe that you can overcome all those challenges around you, you will. When you stop believing in yourself, you will already lost the battle. So, having a positive self, having a positive mind is a work in progress. You have to build the physical, cognitive, or mental, your emotional, increase the emotions in a more positive way. And of course, connect to people socially. It's also a way to build up yourself with the challenges. So calm mind brings inner strength and self-confidence. And that is very important to good health. Remember, a person who is healthy, not just only physically, you have to be psychologically healthy. So the challenge is for everyone to start believing on themselves, okay? The challenge to go beyond the obstacles, like this guy who's finding their way out, like the maze of this puzzle. You will always find a small solution, and if you try and you don't give up, you will always find the right course. So I end this presentation. This The next slide is my clinic details. If you need some appointment later on, this is how you get in touch with me. And there are also some free mental health services that were available. These were in response to the COVID crisis. I think the NCMH, they have a crisis hotline if you want someone to talk to, the PMHA, mental health first responders, and In Touch community. If you want more, you can check our Facebook page, the PAP or Psychological Association of the Philippines. There's so many lists of clinics that are available. Some are embedded in the school like UP, they have PsychServe, Ateneo, they have Bulatao, and you can search around. The most important is to seek help. So it's not bad to seek help. No? Let me end with my sharing this afternoon. Um, Earlier on, there was an information about Viktor Frankl, the one who talks about man's search for meaning. He also said in his article that he who knows the reason of the why, he can bear almost anyhow. So if you know the reason why you are alive and you find your way to exist, you will exist and you will thrive. So thank you very much and have a good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Cely. That was a wonderful, insightful presentation. We do all have to be positive and live a positive lifestyle for everyone, for all of us to survive this. Before we move on, before we move on to the next speaker, I'd like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Ron Resurrection of the Psychological Association of the Philippines. He's the president, and he was the one that was instrumental in terms of inviting our speakers today. Maraming salamat po, Dr. Resurrection. Moving on, let's have now Ms. Mau Lara, who originally hails from Davao, the Promised Land. Welcome, Mau.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Is my audio clear before I begin? Is okay? All right. So good afternoon, everyone. So I was asked to talk about adjusting to the new normal. But before I actually go into the details, I'd like to ask you a very simple question. Can I ask, next slide, please? All right. So, kamusta? We often ask this question, right? There are a lot of, in every language, we have, it's translated into like, ¿Cómo estás? ¿Qué tal? Ni hao ma? All right? All languages would have this, a translation of this question, how are you? Okay? This is something, especially as a Filipino, when we meet someone, we often would ask, kamusta? Pero ngayon, I'd like us to ask this question to ourselves. Kamusta na ba tayo? Kamusta na ba ako? Why am I asking this? Because chances are, most of us right now would be feeling a certain type of emotion. For some, it would be just singular emotions, happy, sad. We may probably be nervous or anxious. But for some, what they may be feeling right now may be quite indescribable. Indescribable in the sense that it may actually be a combination of different types of emotion. And if ever you are one of those persons, that is perfectly okay. So next slide, please. So I'll just like to give an overview of what is mental health. So my main goal is for us to visit what mental health is, and then how are we going to manage our mental health, especially in this time of the pandemic, all right? So let's go to the definition. Next slide, please. So when you talk about mental health, according to the World Health Organization, can we click on the slide? Yeah. Okay. Mental health is a state of well-being in which an individual realizes his or her own capabilities, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively, and is able to contribute to his or her community. So if you look at it, being mentally healthy and mentally unhealthy, or mentally well or mentally unwell, all right, they actually exist in a continuum, with each pole having a different set of course, a characteristic. All right, next slide, please. So what we would want to be, or what we would want to achieve, is of course we would want to be a mentally healthy and a well-adjusted person. I look at it as an ideal state. Okay, ideal state in a way that, why am I saying it's ideal state? Because sometimes we hit it, sometimes there might be times in our lives that it may waver, we may waver, all right? But if you look at it, a healthy and a well-adjusted person would display these behavioral patterns. So first, they display maturity in thinking, emotional balance, all right? They display warmth and understanding towards others. They are free from tension, even with routine events, all right? And they display independence in terms of decision-making. So now we see, diba, the characteristic or the behavioral patterns of a mentally healthy and a well-adjusted person. So balik tayo sa question, kamusta na ba tayo? Okay, so next slide, please. So at this time of the pandemic, wherein that word, pandemic, COVID, has become a byword, anong nangyayari ngayon? We are in this unprecedented situation. Or actually, or in a more personal level, I never imagined that I will experience this in my lifetime. And probably most people would also share the same sentiments. So let's look at our numbers. Okay, so in terms of the COVID statistics, next slide, please. Okay, so the details or the data that I have here is as of August 1. But I checked kanina sa Department of Health. As of the last data that they have was yesterday, August 4. So our total cases has already reached 593, wherein total active cases are around 44,429. Okay, and what is even more alarming is that these numbers, day on day, they keep on rising. All right, and the uncertainty as to when our cities or yung where we live in, yung bang pakiramdam na, oh my God, umaakyat ang cases, baka biglang bumalik na naman kami from MGCQ, like in my city, MGCQ na kami. Pag umakyat ang cases, baka bumalik kami ng MECQ. Yung bang nagkakaroon ng feeling of uncertainty, all right? And this feeling of uncertainty plagues us from day to day. So if before the pandemic, we often would plan ahead, like especially for those people who would want to travel, nag-aabang ng promo fare, for example. All right? Ngayon, we find ourselves in situations where instead of planning for months on end, we now find ourselves with just trying to survive one day at a time. So also the prospect of, the fear that our loved ones may actually get sick or may even pass away due to this illness. This is very unsettling. And in every day since the pandemic, our existence is being threatened. Next, okay. So at this time, our mental health is actually put at a risk. We often find ourselves at a loss on what we would want to do. We find difficulty in how to navigate in this situation that we are in. We are at a loss on how we are supposed to behave, how we are supposed to feel. Okay, so and there's a very drastic change in our lifestyle, as you may say. Things that we normally take for granted, like for example, even the simple thing like going out to the mall. But before, it's just, okay, if I have a bad work day, I just go to the mall and, distress for a little while, maybe walk around. But now these things that we actually take for granted before, we now become restricted in doing these things. And even simple acts before, like nagmamano tayo sa mga magulang natin. Or when we see our friends, we hug them, we make beso-beso. These are the things that we no longer can do, okay? When we go out to the mall, like sometimes I go for milk tea, for example. Sometimes it gets too tiring because the rules in my house says that if I go out, I have to disinfect, I have to take a shower and all those things before I actually go in. Why is that? Because I live with my parents who are both senior citizens, and I think you all know that senior citizens are at a greater risk. So in order to take care of my parents, I would have to, go through that elaborate thing every time I go out. And here's the thing, pre-pandemic, what is the thing that we actually dread? Dining out alone. Now it becomes already the part of our new normal. Okay, next slide, please. So when we browse through our Facebook news feeds, for example, it's common to actually see articles like this. So this already says a lot of how this pandemic has changed us, all right? Psychologically, actually, we are quite affected. And the article on the right side of your screen, this is something that personally, it resonates most with me. Okay, so as I shared with some of your officers when we had a meeting, I was regularized in this new job March 16. That was the day after the lockdown. So at that time, I had that fear, similar to any new employee, I had that fear in me. I was so scared that if I fall short of, the expectations, I failed to do something that was asked of me. I was so scared that my tenure in the company would be at risk. So what did I do? I drove myself really hard. I had very long days, and the fact that I was working from home, of course, there's the line between my office and my home kind of no longer existed. And this happened to me even if I am already a mental health professional. I was guilty of that. I let my fears get to me. So I thought actually at first I was okay. I said to myself that I'm used to this stress because during my days at the academy, it was quite busy. I also had long hours. So I really was confident that I was okay. Perhaps I am. I think I would like to think that I am. But mainly I would like to give credit to that very strong support system that I have. I have very supportive colleagues, and I have friends. And of course, I had my family who was very supportive. They understood all the, my parents saw the changes in my work situation as well as my brothers. So they tried to really, give that support that they have. And I really appreciated it. But I acknowledge that there are some people who might not be as lucky. So the less than ideal work and home situations of some may actually increase their risk, all right, of developing a mental illness or a mental issue. So next slide, please. Now that we are in this situation where we find ourselves isolated from our much needed social connections, I'd like to ask to read this question. Is it normal to be anxious or depressed during this time of the pandemic? Actually, the answer is a resounding yes. It is normal for us to feel fear, become anxious, and for some experience a feeling of pain and loss. The next slide would actually show some signs and symptoms, and this was presented by Lancet in February 2020. So these are symptoms of psychological stress and disorder. And among these symptoms, low mood and irritability were the two that specifically stood out as being the most common. So next slide. But sometimes people would start asking, wala naman ako nung mga symptoms na yun. I don't feel any of those. Pero I feel these things. Sometimes I find it difficult to sleep, or there's a change in my sleeping pattern, there's a change in my appetite, or sometimes I find it difficult to concentrate and focus. Ladies and gentlemen, these are also signs and symptoms, and we have to pay attention to these as well. Next slide, please. So aside from the ones that were mentioned in the previous slides, we have to pay attention to any deviation from our normal patterns, and some of which are highlighted in these slides. So I'll give you a minute to go through it, all right? Next slide, please. The pandemic affects individuals across different ages in various ways. Now, for teenagers and young adults like yourselves, all right, these are the common stressors that you may be encountering. So first is the imminent possibility of our loved ones and our significant others becoming ill. The second is the stress that the nonstop pandemic news is bringing us every day, all right? And then that feeling of missing out on traditional milestones like, celebrating our debut or 18th birthday or, graduation, all right? So these are milestones that now we feel that are, we were no longer able to enjoy, all right? And of course, missing our friends. And for those who recently graduated, they are now faced with a possibility of not being able to find employment or not being able to jumpstart their career. And of course, the anxiety that may have been brought by, news of companies closing down and the subsequent employment. Now, bakit kasali to? Because of course, diba, as children, for example, or when we look at our parents, we may start feeling anxious because what if my parents who are financially supporting me would be one of those who are unemployed? What then? Okay? So these are valid fears, ladies and gentlemen. And a way for us to cope with this is to recognize the reality of these fears All right. Admitting this reality will actually allow us to take the much needed step to get the psychological support that we will really need. Okay? So again, balik tayo sa question, kamusta na ba tayo? So let's pause for a little self-check. Next slide, please. Okay, so when we take that short time to just check on ourselves, take a step back and look at yourself, right? How are you at this very moment? Do you have any of those signs that we tackled or that we showed kanina, right? Do you see those signs when you are working or studying from home? And if so, how often or how frequent are these signs evident? Next slide, please. So to end this part, right, I'd like to just remind everyone that, experiencing these signs and symptoms, it can happen to anyone, all right? And the most important thing is that we pay attention to our own state of mental health. And bakit po natin to kailangan? Next slide. To put it in an analogy, one of the things that I would often hear, or I always hear rather, when I take a flight, is what the flight attendant would often say. That if you are traveling with an infant and you have to put on a life vest, anong sinasabi nila? Make sure to put on your own life vest first before putting on the vest of the child. So in other words, before we can help others, we have to take care of ourselves as well, right? Next slide, please. So how can we achieve a better state of mental health? Next slide. I'll just go through this quite quickly. All right. So these are digestible ways that we can stay sane. So I'll just enumerate this. Focus on what we can control. There are things that are beyond our control, but what we can control is our reaction to them. And as Dr. Cely has mentioned, adapt a regular routine, do the things that you enjoy and make you feel good, and practice empathy and compassion. On the next slide, limit your exposure to social media. Maintain good health, stay physically active, stay connected. And of course, as what we have said kanina, all right, reach out to a trusted person and seek mental health support. Now, the next slide actually showed the common situations or photos of what we have right now when we do working from home. Okay, so this says that our work life, study life becomes blurred already with our home life. Okay, so how do we make sense of our adjustment strategies? There are 3 little things that I would like to emphasize. First one, next slide, sir. Adapt a resilient mindset. Use effective stress management approach. And Dr. Cely has mentioned a lot of those kanina, right? And never lose sight of what truly happens or what truly matters to you. So eventually, it is a matter of choice for us. Okay, why am I saying it's a matter of choice? Are we going to start accepting that COVID is here to stay? Or, which means we have to incorporate this into our own reality? Or are we going to stick with wishing that we can go back to our new normal or old normal rather? Okay, personally, what I see right now is that people would often say, if we go back to our new normal. Palaging ganun ang naririnig ko. We always hope that. But that was also how I did before. And then I started asking, what if? What if it will never come back? That is when I actually started on a paradigm shift. So what do I mean by paradigm shift? Can we move to the next few slides? Okay. So yeah. So ang paradigm shift ko, before I started, I was so sorry to feel, I can't spend time with my friends. But now I started to see, I can't spend time with my friends, but I see my family a lot. And I started appreciating them. Instead of, trying to feel sorry or feeling sorry for myself because I can no longer go to the gym, because I used to dance, I used to lift weights, I now try to discover a new skill. And on a more personal note, there is a photo there, I think, that we see right now. Okay. that is actually my room. Before, pre-COVID, what happened was that my room was simply a place to, just sleep, crash. And, when I'm so tired, I just go lie down in my bed. And the next morning, I rush out, go to work and all those things. Okay. But during this time of the pandemic, the first thing that I actually did was to make my room a livable place. Livable in the sense that, I had my specific workspace. I prettified my room. I now have a plant, and I actually have a cactus there, and I'm so proud of that cactus. I managed not to kill it. So I'm not a green thumb person, so I'm so proud of that cactus that I have. All right. And then also on the other picture, okay, if you can see there, it's a white table. That is what I would like to call my craft area. Before, because when I was so busy, I really didn't have time to do the things that I loved as a kid. But now, in order to pass time, and then usually also on weekends, I really make it a point to not do any work. So what I do, I concentrate on crafts. I do paint by numbers, and my recent obsession, if you would like to call it, no, my recent pastime is actually to get miniatures and make it into a dollhouse. So it really takes makes me so happy. And I actually, find that, oh my God, it's already nighttime. And then I just sat there and then I enjoy by myself. And if things get too stuffy at home, I go out, I jog. Of course, with a face mask and all those things. But I try to, keep still a routine. During work, it's work. I wake up at 6 a.m. I have my work day at 8 to 6 p.m. And then after that, it's for my family, it's for my chores. And on the weekend, it's for myself. So that is actually how I manage to keep my sanity, if you would like to call it that. It was something that I didn't read from the books. It's just something that came to me in a way that I started just, changing a little about my paradigm. I started trying to see the positive. I gave that, or I worked on that habit of developing gratitude. That is, when you have this attitude of gratitude, that already spells a whole lot. It makes a very big difference. So with that, thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me to share my story with you. And with that, let us stay sane, safe, and healthy. Thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Mao. I know. Everything that you shared with us is really very, very practical. We all have to have our own schedules, stick to our schedules. We also have to reach out to people we can trust. We also need to practice empathy. We have to practice gratitude. And yes, this is the new normal. We have to adapt to all of these. I understand that the presentations will be available to the viewers, and you can just contact the FINEX Secretariat to do that. But anyway, we have an open forum, and during this open forum, we will have some panelists. Ms. Dada Del Carmen, who's the overall chair, Engineer Jeremy Abano, who is one of the members of JFINEX, and we have a student, or should I say a fresh graduate. Her name is Ms. Andrea Nagales of St. Scholastica's College, Manila, who was Vice President of the Student Council. And quite recently, she put up her own business, a milk tea business, and I understand it's doing very, very well. In any case, now is your chance to ask questions to the speakers, and don't be shy. The chat box is open for everyone. Panelists, take it away.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Cely and Mao, for your presentations. We already have a couple of questions in our Q&A button in our Zoom call. We're also looking at questions coming in from our FB live feed. So please keep your questions coming in. And just to get the ball rolling, I wanted to ask either Dr. Cely or Mao. All the tips mentioned earlier towards mental wellness seem to be logical, right? They are seem to be easy to do, but when you're locked in this environment, how does one become consistent in applying those suggestions, those ideas, and how to maintain your mental wellness? And or maybe how or when would you know that we already need to seek professional help?
You wanna to start ba?
Ikaw na, Doc Cely.
um, when to know if you wanna seek professional help? I think the earlier the better. Although we recognize that there's always a stigma, especially in our country today, that mental health is really a big issue. You don't want to be labeled. There's a lot of stereotype around. So the barrier, or I mean the red flag, is when you cannot function effectively. I think that's something that needs more professional, because I believe every one of us, we have our own way to adapt. We can cope, but at the end of the road, you will also reach a point that you cannot do it on your own. That's when you seek help. If you become more dysfunctional than the usual, then it's more challenging for you to do everyday activities. You're also suffering not just on yourself, even your relationship with the people around you. Seeking help is not a second opinion, but it's really a must.
Yeah, I agree with that. No? If, for example, there is really like a break already in how you function, all right, that is the time to seek mental health. But personally, I actually just try to, when things get too overwhelming already, I honestly try to keep a routine. As in, may routine talaga ako. That's something that helped me a lot. Yung, as I mentioned, I wake up at 6 a.m. The temptation, because my work starts at 9, the temptation to not wake up at 6 a.m. But then I'm so used to waking up at 6 a.m. So I stick to that schedule. I make that mental effort. And I'm not saying I had it perfect. I'm not saying that. I backslide sometimes. And even that feeling of, trying to be grateful, sometimes I backslide. And when I catch myself na parang, oops, you're backsliding, ako mismo nagsi-self-talk na, Maureen, stop that. You're not doing anything. You're not helping yourself. And then what I do is, just go out, for example, like, because I was a very physically active person. Like, I spend time in the gym 3 hours a day. And then now I cannot even touch a dumbbell because I'm so scared to go to the gym. So I try to find a way to still keep physically active. Like, just going out to jog, it gives that, yung para bang nagre-recharge sa akin na nahanginan ako, nagkaroon ako ng sun, nagkaroon ako ng endorphins, yung tinatawag ko na happy hormones. So that is something that I have to make conscious effort. Because if we just allow ourselves, to just slouch around, it's very easy to actually be, to fall into that trap of, loneliness, anxiety, and all those other feelings that will, set the stage for a mental health issue. So it's a conscious effort. It's a conscious effort.
Thank you, Doc, and thank you, Mao. Andrea?
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'd like to thank you, Ms. Mao and Dr. Cely, for the wonderful things that you have shared with us. As a mental health advocate and as a student leader, I would like to ask, what are the strategies that you can suggest or recommend for the student leaders in order to support the other students' well-being?
Okay. First, take care of yourself before you can actually take care of others. And I know and I understand that as student leaders, diba, we would always want to help our fellow students. However, again, as I said, it's something that's unprecedented. So I would like to encourage you to actually reach out, get a network. All right. So if, for example, a student can or somebody would approach you, I'm having this trouble, you know where to refer them. Because there are things that we can help people with. There are things that, somebody else might be able to extend assistance to. So I'd really like to encourage you to, build that network among your fellow students. For example, sa psych na lang, kasi psych naman din ako, di ba? So let's link up with psych students, and these psych students also have a linkage with other professionals who they can refer whenever somebody needs that much needed support.
I think it's also helpful to just say reconnected, like texting or have a time to chat, because they wanted to open up. Our tendencies to have somebody to listen to our problems, at least on a certain time. But remember, you have to be mentally and psychologically ready to become a sponge, if I will use that term. Then, if you feel like you are heavily loaded with all the informations and it's beyond you as a person to listen, that's when you do the referral. But one way or another, a simple text like "Kamusta ka? Are you okay?" Just give some positive messages will also help. But don't act as a professional, okay? You know your limit. That's what Mau also mentioned. Yung self-care is very, very important.
Thank you. Can I ask one more question, if it's okay?
Yes,
Uh,
yes, go ahead, Andra.
as we see across the country, the COVID-19 pandemic is not affecting students equally. It appears likely to exacerbate the unique mental health issues faced by students of different socioeconomic status. What strategy do you recommend to our executive leaders in the academic institution and in the government to take?
That's very heavy question. But
Yes.
what I can say right now is there are a lot of initiative in behalf of the PAP. For example, we are tapped by other organizations to work with some programs for teachers, student, like primer. Because in our law, which was approved last year, the mental health law, it also cover educational aspect. No? There has to be mental health facilities in the school. We have to empower people, and we have to hire some personnel who can attend to their mental health needs. I believe it differs from different schools, also with the private and public because of the resources, but we, as the organizations, we are trying also to link up with some other organizations to provide some mediations in a way. No, it's not gonna be 100% assurance, but in behalf of our org, our president is here, so we know we're really working very hard to empower everyone about mental health. So it will always start with awareness Yun muna kasi. No, to destabilize the stigma. When people are more aware, the advocacy of awareness, the other things will follow, like programs, other initiatives. And then there are also NGOs who are into mental health right now. So whether we like it or not, we are moving in that kind of direction. I think the government has to be more sensitive to put things in the right place.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I really appreciate that the mental health law was already approved. It actually gave how would you call this? Parang nagkaroon ng boost yung drive to for mental health. But again, it's actually more on the awareness I'd like to really think of the awareness kasi Filipino culture kasi parang medyo hesitant pa talaga tayo na lumapit. Yung bang parang, sorry if I have to speak in Tagalog, no, pero yung pag lumapit tayo sa isang mental health professional, parang ang sama, ang pangit na pakinggan. So I would really, and I appreciate a lot of institutions trying to work to lessen that, to eradicate that stigma that we have of, going to a mental health professional and, seeking help. So that I believe would I think would be where institutions, regardless, not just psychology for that matter, but all institutions can actually help to promote and encourage people to seek help when they need it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. The first questions that that have been presented here has already been answered, but I will still read it. So fear, worry, and stress are normal response to real threats, uncertainty, or the unknown. So it is normal and understandable that people are experiencing fear in the context of COVID-19 pandemic. At what extent do we need to consider seeking medical help? I think our speakers, Dr. Cely and Mao, already answered this by saying that when you start to become not to function well, or to ask many ifs and whys instead of I can and I will. The second question is this one. I think Dr. Cely and Mao, we need to have your answer. How do young professionals and students know what is right for them? Counseling or coaching?
Okay. Coaching, I'd like to think, is more on the specific skill that you would want to build. Whereas counseling is more on, I would like to think of it, or I would like to describe it as a way for us to, get in touch with the things that we fear most or the things that we are concerned with. Coaching, on the other hand, is more, skill specific. So I would like to think it's ultimately a matter of choice, but there are times that I think there are things that the coaches actually, or life coaches for that matter, may not be able to handle, and I believe that, and vice versa. So I believe that we liaise with them. That's why we can actually refer them. But as to skill specific, it's more on coaching, but counseling is more on getting in touch with with ourselves. That's just my view.
I would also agree with the Mao. Although right now there's a lot of issues regarding coaching and seeking for a professional like psychologist or a counselor. And the overlap usually is that some life coaches, they handle more personal matters, although we don't want to question their effectiveness. But on our part, when you come to us as a psychologist or a counselor, we are we respect our boundary, we have our ethical and competency. And on that matter, if it's really requiring specific needs, you better consider coming from a professional point of view. Because if it's more of the counseling and psychotherapy, we're looking at the long term, behavioral modification or the personality issues that are very sensitive. Plus, of course, because we are licensed, we are also protected of our practice. And that's also important. The risk and the safety of the client is within the hands, because it's not easy to just be more open to somebody that not properly regulated by our law, which is more on the licensing. Thank you.
Jeremy?
Yeah. Okay, so let me get a couple of questions from our Q&A button. Actually, there are two questions here that are fairly related to each other, no? And maybe either of you can take this. Um, how do we offer support or emotional support to friends or family members or to someone that we know who have been quarantined? No, and maybe related to that, how do I process fear about loved ones in my life who are higher risk?
I think I answered the first question earlier that as a human being, we have the capacity to be a sponge, no? To be a listener. That's the best. That's the best comfort that we can give. I know some people who had been a COVID survivor or had been suffering through the symptoms. They just want somebody to be with them throughout their journey. It's very important because they are struggling. They are alone in the hospital. Nurses cannot stay longer. Even doctors couldn't stay longer if they are in a critical care. um, the first few weeks will be physical symptoms of the COVID. The other remaining weeks in the hospital and recovery is battling with psychological thing. So helping the person feel that they have somebody giving their more meaning in life and talking to them, and they can feel and empathize their condition, it's really gonna help them. Next to that is the fear. Of course, the risk is always there. Every one of us are afraid, and we don't know at one point we will be infected or not. Constant fear is also good in a way that it will make you more vigilant and more careful, no, not to be exposed to the virus, and that's a good fear. But if you feel like the fear will lead to something else, you're restless, you cannot sleep, you lose weight, and it's more related to anxiety na, that's when you seek help. But just a normal fear of being overly cautious, protecting your loved ones, that's natural. We all have the same level of fear because of this uncertainty. But remember, we also have ways how to protect ourselves. We just need to follow safety measures. I think this will also guide us to be more realistic with our fear and expectations on how we will take care of ourselves and our loved ones.
Yeah, I'd like to just add a little about it. Personally, whenever I see I observe my colleagues, even my family members, my friends, sometimes they have these emotional outbursts na parang, where did that come from? Whenever I find these things, and my usual instinct is to actually, that part of me I would like to react. And usually when I react, ang takot ko lang is that I fight, to say it like fight fire with fire. But then again, I hold back for a while. I just literally count to 10, and then parang sandali. They are going through something. Always, I keep that in mind. Practice empathy and compassion. Practice empathy. They are going through something na hindi ko din masyado naiintindihan. Gusto kong intindihin. So the mere fact that I try to stop and pause for a while and try to extend my understanding and not reacting, I believe that already, in a way, helps. Especially yung day-to-day na tawag dito, interactions natin with family members or with our colleagues. So yun lang.
Andrea, do we have any other question from the floor?
I think we have one question that is relevant for our discussion today. Since here in the Philippines, mental health problems are still stigmatized or not yet fully recognized in the workplace, when a person feels depressed and when they are in when they need to go to work, how can they effectively communicate this kind of situations to the workplace and to their family and friends without being discriminated?
I think right now there are laws that companies are more open-minded
Yes.
with people with mental illness, you can file a leave if you are having psychological issues or you need to seek help. And there are also companies who also cover the consultation and medication fees in their HMO. So it's more of you have to be open. Like during the applications, or if you have suffered and you need the time for break, you need to verbalize it with the HR or whoever managers you have. It's not about stigma. I think they understand it more fully. It's just that it's also limit depends on the company. Siguro Mau can explain more because she's in the corporate.
Actually, what I in my current company, we already have mechanisms in place na, there are emails to to employees. For example, if you feel that you need mental health assistance, please don't hesitate. We already have hotlines, and I believe that's not just for my company, but actually a lot of the companies already have this. We understand, and I believe all company owners also see that need to protect the mental health of their employees. That's why they already have retainers in place that employees can actually just dial. There's a hotline, so all it takes is for the courage to actually go and dial that number or seek that mental health professional.
Thank you so much.
Okay, let's just go through another question in our Q&A button. Um, it was mentioned before. This one's from Alexandra Claire Antonio. It was mentioned before that one way to handle the early signs of stress is to connect with your support groups, which includes one's family and friends. Her question is, what if an individual's supposed to be support group, which are her family and friends, becomes toxic, and at the same time, one of the individuals refuse to seek professional help? How should Alexandra approach that person?
It's
Okay.
also, that's natural, right? That you
Yes.
are, the
Yes.
source of stress is also the family members are the closest to you. We cannot change that. We just have to increase the way on how we can help the person better cope properly. That's why therapy is very important when there's a need. The problem is if they don't want to seek help, um, if your friend is relying to you for emotional support and it's also taxing for you, just space, okay, distance yourself so that they know that you are not psychologically able to provide more, and push them really to seek help. There's no way you can do it, no, but to keep them reminded and open the door for them to seek professional help.
Yes, I agree. And just encourage them to seek that help. If we cannot, hindi natin kailangan saluin lahat. So if we feel that we cannot help our friend already, then by all means, just encourage them, just be with them, and just try to slowly, I guess, in the course of the conversation, na i-introduce na, I feel that somebody else can help you. Maybe it would be easier for you to talk to some a professional who can help you through this. Why not we try exploring? Parang ganon. Dahan-dahanin nyo lang. Wag din parang, kailangan mo na ng mental health professional. Wag naman slowly, digestible ways na para makapasok sa kanila yung idea na, oh, it's not too bad. That I might need it. So, ganun lang.
Okay. Andrea will have the
Okay,
next
Andrea.
questions. Go, Andrea.
From an anonymous attendee, how can I distinguish if I'm having anxiety or stress? Lately, because of the problems, I overthink and I'm having a hard time breathing. And I also na-experience ko din na kahit nakikipagtawanan ako sa family ko, parang ang bigat pa rin ng heart ko. I also isolate myself from my friends kahit kahit na napapasaya naman nila ako.
Okay,
I think
stress is
Dr.
normal,
Cely, Doc
right?
Cely, that's yours.
Okay, stress is a normal response to situations that we are overwhelmed about, no? And then may physical, emotional reactions tayo with the stress. You will know that the stress is different from anxieties because after a certain stressor, like for example, a change in routine, conflict with the family members, when it is solved, you go back to the normal. Your mind is at peace, you can sleep better, your appetite is there, and you're more sociable. With anxiety, as the day pass, you become more increasingly worrying. Of course, there's possibility of panic, like you have difficulty breathing, and the intensity becomes severe over a period of days or time. So, and if you cannot sleep, like you're overthinking, as mentioned, no, a lot of things are worrying you, that's when it becomes more disruptive. So when it goes na nga with the functional issue, you really have to seek help na. It's not yet disorder, it just can be an adaptability or adjustment, but better to seek professional help so that you can have uh, a better way to handle it, and then it will not worsen over time. So intensity is the one of the differences. The course of the adjustment period is also another, and of course, the triggers. It can be any stressor.
All right. Maybe Jerby, you can ask the last question.
Okay. I know we still have a couple of questions in our Q&A button. Just to let our audience know, we'll be passing on the questions to our speakers, and we'll try to answer the questions in our Facebook page. So just wait for our post so that we can attend to all your questions. And if ever there are further questions that you want to post, just send a message to our Facebook page. Just one more question to our speakers from our Q&A box again. As someone who wants, again from an anonymous attendee, as someone who wants to finish tasks and assessments as early as possible, I tend to sacrifice my sleep. I have tried making a daily routine to remedy this, but I still could not get the feeling out of my chest that I could not finish the tasks and assessments on time. Are there any suggestions on how I can get rid of the anxiety and make the routine work? I think this is very common to, especially to those working from home and our students who are having ODL classes already.
Okay. For me, I also went through that in a way that I did lose a lot of sleep, but I realized na parang one thing that actually helped me was that if I don't sleep or if I extend, my waking hours just to work, will my task be finished or will it still stay the next day? And then I realized it's gonna stay. The task will always be there. If I finish this, it doesn't mean that, if I finish task 1 up until 2 or 1 up to 5, for example, it doesn't mean that I only have to finish 5 to 10 the next day. Chances are the 5 remaining tasks would have another 5 more. So with that perspective in mind, I just really, it's a constant work in progress for me also, that parang, okay, that's enough. I do self-talk. Thankfully, I don't hear any answers. Just kidding. It's, what do you call this? I really make a conscious effort to, stick to the routine. It's, again, we can backslide, but pick yourself up whenever we have these moments that we backslide, and then make, again, that effort to keep that routine. You owe it to yourself, actually. You owe it to yourself, especially when it comes to sleep, right? The lack of sleep lessens our productivity. It also makes us prone to, feeling much more intense emotions, all right? So we really need that sleep. The work that we have, the task that we have will stay. But the sleep that we, miss is gonna be quite difficult to recover. So that's just for me.
Okay, I want to emphasize that also. No, I know if we are doing a lot of things, the next thing that we need to sacrifice is the sleep because we don't have enough time. We only given specific time of the day. So the first thing that a person need to do is adjust the sleeping time. You have to sleep a bit early. I told you in the presentation earlier, at least not more than midnight. Kung if you can stretch yourself hanggang 11 o'clock lang ng gabi, better sleep. Wake up 30 minutes or early hour every day. It's part of the time management. You know, when you start the day a bit early, you finish ahead of time. And then next to that is, of course, 80-20 principle. Look at your tasks, prioritize which is the most urgent and most important, focus on that, and leave the remaining parts afterwards. Because it also gives you a sense of fulfillment when you finish the heavy task ahead of time. You're more excited and motivated to do the small things. The problem is we spend most of our time doing the small uh, tasks, and then when we go to the bigger tasks, we are very frustrated and we don't have enough time. So that's when we become panicky. So tell yourself you have enough time. You just need to manage and prioritize. Add 30 minutes of every time. So if you wake up like 6, do it like 5:30, and then shorten your lunch if possible. You can eat like 15 to 20 minutes undisturbed. Chew your food well so that you don't have acid reflux after, and then work with those remaining times. It really helps so that you can stretch the longer time. And then if you are distracted with Facebook, kasi sometimes when we hold our phone and then we just browse something, oh my God, it's already an hour or so. So learn how to avoid those distractions. Because the more that we feel like we don't have time, our brain will process it, and you will start with all the anxieties and you will become panicky. So you have to approach it in a more calmer manner, because when you are calm and you sleep better, you're more focused. You're able to be more functional in a way and productive in your day-to-day activities.
Thank you.
Again, for the rest of the questions, they are very, very good questions. Apparently, we are almost an hour over our original schedule. I am very surprised that our attendees called on to this webinar. So this signifies that this is really a significant matter to focus on or and to give attention to. So yes, LD Benny.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Cely, Mao, Dada, Jeremy, and Andrea. Today's session has really been enlightening. Most of you may have picked up some keywords. Positivity. We always have to stay positive and do everything positively and with a smile. We always need to be grateful. Let's all practice gratitude. We also have to practice empathy and compassion. We have to be able to understand those around us. We also have to be able to practice and stick to a time schedule. And of course, we need to give our bodies time to rejuvenate by sleeping earlier or sleeping at a certain time and waking up at a predetermined time. These are all keywords, and there's really more to learn as we continue to adjust to this new normal. I'd like to turn over the closing remarks to Ms. Dada Del Carmen, overall chair of our JFINEX committee.
Yes, we are very grateful to the Psychological Association of the Philippines, to Dr. Ron Resurrection, the president, our guest speakers, Dr. Cely Magpantay, and Ms. Maureen Jean Lara, for sharing the expertise on this topic. We also thank the JFINEX members, the FINEX members, and the FINEX Secretariat who helped stage this successful webinar. And to all the participants and guests, thank you very much. The abrupt changes in the environment from how we usually do things we've grown to can cause or intensify stress and anxiety. Everything now is different. We will not go back to the old. It is challenging for everyone. There are many questions for the youth, such as what will my future look like in terms of getting job, establishing careers, establishing business, getting married, having children. How many can we manage the challenges on online learning when the school starts? This webinar was an opportunity to help you understand yourself and others. It's all about how well you will be able to adjust to the challenges. This all boils down to your mental and emotional state. We hope that you and I have learned something new today, which will help you a lot in your journey to the new norm as student or as young professional. Not only the young professionals, but also the old professionals who attended and have learned something new today. The old professional, like some of the panelists, Jeremy. You can share your learnings with your peers and more importantly to your family members so that we can adjust to the realities of today. I can personally say that finding and focusing to the purpose why you have another day is a blessing. After the lockdown, I told our liaison director, Benny, that every day is a bargain. And then he said, Dada, every day is a blessing. Indeed, every day is a blessing. And that we can find reasons to be grateful and to stay positive, that we can stop asking what if, why not, why is this like this, and turn it to become I can and I will. And we become an overcomer and victorious in this COVID-19 pandemic. We can find time to be closer to our Creator, to know His words, to know His thoughts, and to know His realities. I wish I can share you this Christy from Andrea to all of you. When we have another chance to have a conference, I will surely sponsor this and give you all this wonderful milk tea from Andrea. With that, let me close by saying, while we can no longer embrace each other, at least together, we can embrace the new normal. Again, thank you and have a blessed day.
We're off. We're off.
Our participants are still in the room.
Thank you, everyone. Great job. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Dada.
Are we
Thank
still
you,
in the...
Dr. Cely. Thank you, Mao. Thank you, President Jeng. Thank you, Secretariat.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Jan. Thank you, Jam. Thank you, Mike. Maraming salamat.
Thank you.
Very successful,
Thank
very
you.
good. And I hope we can do a second round because this is for the youth, but actually also the parents need this. So they will also be able to understand their children. Don't you think so?
I agree.
Alex, maraming salamat rin. Rafi, thank you. Jeff, Ann, thank you. Sino pa ba nandito? Dr. Ron, maraming salamat. If you're still there. Great job, everyone.